The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jennifer Schaus coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and we are continuing in our summer series of webinars focused on U.S. government contracting topics. Today, we are very lucky to have Patrick Fazzone with us. His is going to be navigating the 8A program, and he'll talk about getting the 8A certification, some best practices, and we will also dig into life after 8A. So again, thank you for joining us. The slide that you're looking at now is the full list of the other topics that we're covering. Tomorrow we're talking about the politics of procurement and lobbying. Next week we get into contract administration, facility clearances, unsolicited proposals, and SBIRs. At the end of the webinar series on June 17th, we will have all the recordings available for you. So if you were interested in a webinar and unable to make it, those are always going to be available to you. So again, thanks for joining us. If you do have questions, please type them in on the right-hand side of your screen. There's a control panel there, and one of the options will say questions. We will answer your questions in the order that they are received. We do have a full hour. We probably won't use the full time, but in the event that we've got a lot of questions, we will certainly go through each of those. Should we run out of time, we'll have Patrick's information available on the last slide, and you can contact him directly in regards to the 8A program. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself now. I've been in government contracting for about 20 years. I started my career with Dun & Bradstreet, helping basically sell financial data to government agencies. And this included selling to contracting officers as well as investigative agencies that were looking at money laundering and white-collar criminals. I'm going to speak to some of the well-known and established government contracting organizations in the area. And started my business about 10 years ago. We are focused on helping government contractors at the federal level with anything from proposal writing, GSA schedules, sales, business development, some of the certifications, and we also host events at the Kennedy Center, which is in downtown D.C., for government contractors. We typically bring in about 200 to 250 government contractors, federal government agencies, corporate sponsors, including Patrick's firm, Montgomery Fazzone, and many others. So thanks for joining us. Enough about me. We're going to hand the microphone over to Patrick, and he will tell you a little bit about himself, his firm, and then we will jump into his presentation. Patrick, thanks again for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's my pleasure. So I'm a partner and founder in Montgomery Fazzone, PLLC. We are a D.C. law firm, and we advise and assist companies on doing business with the U.S. government. And that includes contracting strategies, helping them understand the acquisition system and regulations, and in particular, understand the opportunities for small to mid-sized businesses. Our law firm, again, is Washington, D.C. Based. We advise and assist clients on a broad range of matters involving the U.S. government, as well as corporate commercial law, international transactions, federal acquisition, facility security clearances, and government relations, tax, and litigation.
Great. Thanks for the background information, and now we will jump into your presentation.
Thanks very much. Jennifer, as you mentioned, what I want to talk about a little bit today is some practicalities of the Section 8A program and provide a few tips on maximizing the benefits of the program and for small businesses generally. So the Small Business Administration administers a whole range of programs that are mandated by the Small Business Act, and they're designed to assist qualifying small businesses to grow. The Section 8A program is a principal example of that type of SBA program. To participate, businesses must be unconditionally owned and controlled by an individual who can demonstrate that he or she has suffered social and economic disadvantages. That's a threshold requirement, but the program's not open to just anybody that can demonstrate social and economic advantage. The business also has to demonstrate the potential for success. Normally must have been in business for at least 2 years prior to applying for the program. The SBA will go through a very detailed process to assess whether, in fact, the company does have a reasonable prospect for success, and we'll look at a whole range of indicators, including its technical and managerial experience, prior operating and history, and performance on other contracts. And there are other criteria as well, such as good character and so forth. So a lot of our clients are, when they learn of the small business programs administered by the SBA, get really excited, and they all want to know how they can benefit, and they want to know what the big advantages are. And of course, one of the principal advantages is the opportunity to participate in set-aside contracts for small businesses, as well as potentially for sole source contracts. And there are other benefits as well. But there are some things that you want to bear in mind. I don't think you want to rush into a program like the 8A program. I think you want to bear some things in mind and give some real close considerations to whether you really want to participate and if the timing is actually right. A few things to bear in mind that are on the slide right now. Participation is for 9 years in total, and there are these two phases, one a 4-year phase for growth and development, and then a 5-year transitional stage. What that indicates is the whole purpose of this program is not only to assist small businesses by providing some advantages, but also to help them transition into sustainable businesses after the program is over. Another key point is that this 9-year term of participation can be shortened voluntarily by a company, or the company can be terminated or graduated by SBA, depending on the circumstances. What we want to talk about a little bit here is the voluntary graduation considerations, and I'll come to that a little bit later on. But as I mentioned, there really is a rigorous certification process, and the SBA will require considerable documentation, both to establish your eligibility and also your reasonable prospects for business success. A lot of paperwork, and I think a common problem is potential applicants really don't fully understand what the SBA is going to require in order to be able to certify the company to participate in the program. I think one bit of sound advice is you should have a strong, reasonable business plan even before you apply for certification. But in any case, promptly after you get certified, if the SBA decides that you are eligible, the business needs to submit a business plan, which must be approved by SBA, prior to being able to participate in any of the program benefits, including set-aside contracts, sole source contracting, and so forth. And that business plan has to be comprehensive, just like a business plan for any company. It really has to have an analysis of market potential, specific targets, objectives, and goals for business development. A couple of other things to bear in mind before you consider whether or not to apply for a program like the 8A program. There are no guarantees. The SBA does not provide you with contracts or opportunities. It's the companies that participate that have to engage in their own independent marketing activities for contracts. And they need to pursue contracts both in the public sector, that is the set-aside contracts and contracts that are made available to small businesses, but also in the private sector as well. And they need to maintain a balance in their activities in business throughout the program, both in the public and private contracts. Once certified, there are also ongoing requirements. You have to continue to meet the ownership and size criteria for the program. You have to maintain a balance between government contracts and commercial business. And the SBA district offices will monitor and measure the progress of participants through annual reviews, business planning, and evaluations. If we could just go to the next slide. And we've just covered the ongoing requirements, so if we can go to the next slide. So here's a couple of considerations perhaps that you ought to make a priority in deciding whether or not to participate to apply in an 8A program. Is your firm really eligible? Even if the owner is socially and economically disadvantaged, does it meet all the other criteria? Is it worth going through the certification process? It's rigorous. Is your product or service going to have a market within the government? Excuse me, is the government procurement market for you? I mean, selling to the U.S. government can be complicated, and contracts are subject to a variety of special rules and regulations, notably the procurement regulations in the FAR and other agency regulations. Does your track record so far indicate a reasonable prospect of success? Do you have a business plan? Have you been following it? Are you experiencing growth or traction in the market? Are there any issues under the good character requirements? Do you have the staff to be able to develop and implement a business plan from day one in the program? A common problem is companies do qualify based on a lot of prospects and then require several years to start reaping the benefits of the program. And by the time you know it, they're almost in the transition stage. So I think you want to choose your timing very carefully. Are you going to be able to achieve a balance between government contracting and private sector business? Timing is really everything. Even if you're technically eligible now, you still probably want to wait until the timing is right. You want to learn about government contracting first, have some business already, build the relationships you're going to need to go forward, particularly in the private sector market. Understand your company, what differentiates you from others, and not just 8A status. Make sure that your business plan is realistic, that it has realistic goals, that you have the resources and staff in place to start benefiting from the Section 8A program from day one. And make sure that you're positioned really for both private sector sales and the government market. Well, let's assume that you've applied and you're certified. Needless to say, what you're next going to want to do is make sure that you maximize the benefits of participating. While the 8A program provides your company with some very useful support and contracting opportunities, as I say, in the end, it's up to you and your firm to make the business a success. So in order to be able to take advantage of these sole source or set-aside contracting opportunities, you have to go out and you have to compete for them and win them. That means you have to qualify for them. And again, you need to be pursuing both these government set-aside contracts, but also private sector opportunities. So you want to have a good business plan, you want to diligently pursue it, but you also probably want to make sure that you've covered your bases on how you're going to be able to expand your company and your business. And hopefully your business plan is going to have that set out. You may need to look at expanding into new products or service lines or adapt what you already do. You may need to try to look at ways potentially and down the track to attract outside investors or other business alliances. And for us, our clients, an objective is often really to graduate from the program early. And that will afford companies with an opportunity to pursue these alternative strategies like enlisting an outside investor, while also removing the requirement for ongoing monitoring compliance with SBA requirements. So as I mentioned earlier, you can exit the 8A program early. The SBA can terminate you for various reasons. It can also graduate you if it feels that you've achieved your business plan targets and or are no longer economically or socially economically disadvantaged. But you can graduate early and you can apply to do so. It's permitted where a firm has met its business plan goals and is commercially viable. Firms often want to try to graduate early in order to be able to have greater flexibility in their business operations down the line. It's a very interesting case study on this. We had a client that saw that they could benefit from set-aside contracts and became 8A certified. But over time, what they did notice was that the contracting opportunities in the set-aside area were less important to their business. At the same time, they were also very interested in enlisting the active involvement of a larger company in their business. And it became apparent that the best way to do that was for the large company to become a significant investor in the business. And the objective, of course, was to accelerate the growth and give them far greater reach in different markets. Because the client had achieved its business plan objectives, and it had very realistic prospects for success, it graduated early and has taken its business well beyond the 8A. Let's talk a little bit about life after the 8A program, and here I just wanted to provide a few tips and suggestions. The objective of every participant should be to develop and grow the business so that it will be sustainable afterwards. When you graduate, success is not a given, and the playing field is a lot flatter and the competition can be a lot fiercer because suddenly you're not in the set-aside contract world. But here's a few suggestions as to what you might be thinking throughout the program and thereafter. First, I think it's a good rule of thumb to plan on graduating from the program early, say a few years into the transitional stage. Within the business, this will help create a sense of purpose and urgency and a focus on the longer term. You don't want to wait until your term of participation is up and you find yourself saying, now what? Remember, you can only participate in the 8A program once. During your participation in the program, I think it's advisable to think about how you want to staff your company so that you can achieve that balance and then growth for life thereafter. And that might include bringing in marketing people who are both one set of staff pursuing private sector and another group of people pursuing the government program, so that you have a good balance and not just pushing people around as opportunities arise. Throughout the program, don't forget about international markets and export sales. A lot of companies, I think, fall into the trap of just trying to pursue business around the country only when they may have very viable markets internationally. And these days, more than ever, opportunities are very much accessible to small to mid-sized companies. And U.S. government agencies like the Commerce Department and state governments are there to help. If you identify product adaptations that may need made, try to do them as early as possible within your 8A program so that you can benefit both within the time that you're in the program and afterwards. Keep your eye on all potential strategies for business growth at all stages of your business development. Maybe you can't bring in outside investors while you're in the program, but you can start positioning your business for early graduation and that type of expansion afterwards. One thing that we always advise our clients, and I think it's underappreciated, is while you're in the program and even before, look closely at the various ways that you can pursue government contracts, including through teaming arrangements, qualifying JVs, and listing your product or service on a GSA schedule. Many of these strategies will continue to be available to you post-graduation. But at the same time, narrow your focus as you transition. Identify your markets, focus on those agencies and product areas within the government sector where you're having the greatest success. And I think one of the problems that I've seen with small business startups is that while you're trying to learn about the market, you start exploring all sorts of different opportunities and different potentials, fits, and what ends up happening is staff ends up grinding up an awful lot of time and resources on things, initiatives that don't really pan out. You know, I would say another important thing from our experience is start getting your foot in the door early, particularly with larger firms. You know, you're allowed to form teaming relationships while you're in the 8A program, as long as you don't run afoul of the size rules. You can subcontract to larger firms. What you want to do is start forming business relationships with the larger prime contractors so that you have a basis for commercial relationships, both within your 8A program participation, but afterwards as well. The 8A program does allow you to work closely with larger firms under the mentor protege program. It's something that you should definitely take advantage of. While you're growing your business, make sure you hire the right talent. A great source of talent for the government sector, but also for the commercial sector, are ex-government employees that may understand programs, understand technologies, and have good ties with their former agencies. Make sure you seek advice in advance on any restrictions that ex-employees might have in working for your company. Maybe a bit of prudential advice. Start forming some real disciplines within your business on your expenditures, on your finances. It is very common for 8A firms to experience a drop in revenues after they graduate as they start casting around for other different types of business opportunities. And really, you need to plan ahead for your exit from the program, really almost from day one. That involves an ongoing process of modifying your business plan as necessary in advance of your graduation. You want to focus very carefully in this planning on what I would call the 3 factors essential to business success: business focus, sound finances, and your business's unique characteristics. Remember, once you're in the competitive marketplace, what sets your business apart becomes essential. A related point is building your brand. The consultants call it strategic brand management, managing your IP, your goodwill, your reputation with your customers, suppliers, and partners. For our business and for our clients' business, really a large part of that is investing in your website and social media and your marketing materials. They really need to demonstrate your firm's unique value proposition. We do this in our law firm, or at least we try to do it, and we advise all of our clients to do the same thing as well. You want to hire the right type of marketing, advertising, and or PR people. Oftentimes companies are concerned about the potential expense of hiring that type of staff, but if you hire the right type of person and give them the right kind of resources and base to work from, they could be critical to your business. Thinking about life after 8A is always important, since your company's growth following participation will depend on business other than contracts set aside for small business concerns.
Great information, Patrick. Thank you so much for a very insightful look into the 8A program before, during, and after. We'll now move into the conclusions. And again, everybody, if you do have questions, feel free to type them in on the lower right-hand side of your control panel. And I'll hand the microphone back to you, Patrick.
So the conclusions, I guess I would stress again, the 8A program is a great opportunity for small businesses to grow away from a lot of the competitive pressures that you'll get in the marketplace afterwards. So it can greatly benefit eligible businesses, but it's very important to choose the right time to apply for the program so that you can maximize the benefit, even if you're immediately eligible. And once you're in, you need to be taking the right steps to expand your business and ensure long-term success after the program is over.
Great. And I also, this topic is pretty important to me because we talk to so many companies that are eligible, and just because you're eligible for 8A doesn't mean that you should pull the trigger. So I added some of my own conclusions, which pretty much mirror what Patrick has been saying throughout the great presentation. So again, you don't want to enter the program too early. A lot of times companies do that and they don't know anything about government contracting, but they heard about 8A and again, they're eligible, so they pull the trigger and they waste maybe the first, sometimes 3 or 4 years just learning about government contracting. So I'd say wait until you've got a couple contracts under your belt, until you really understand the landscape, what your competitive advantage is, and then consider the program. You also want to lead with what it is your company does, your value proposition, versus, hi, we're an 8A company, you should contract with me because we're 8A, because that's only going to last for a finite period. I'll equate it to the dating life, and you don't want somebody to date you just because you drive a fancy car. You want them to date you based on what it is you're bringing to the table. So same thing, this 8A, again, is only going to be available to you for those 9 years. And then once that's gone, you want them to continue to contract with you based on what it is your company does and does well. And you want to make a plan in advance for when you graduate. So maybe around, I don't know, year 4, 5, or 6, you start looking at companies who provide a similar service or product as you that you can then, once you graduate, partner with, because once your 8A is up, you want to make sure that you've got some relationship that you can then turn into revenue, both at the government side, but then with other 8A companies that you can continue to work with. So those were just some of my thoughts. And now, as I mentioned, we will move into the questions and answers. I'm going to move on to the page that has Patrick's contact information. So again, should we run out of time, which doesn't look like we will, please feel free to contact him directly. So Patrick, if you can stick around for a couple minutes, I'm going to read through the questions as they come in here. The first one reads, you mentioned ownership requirements for 8A. Can you please elaborate on what ownership actually means?
Yeah, and there are 2 aspects to it. It's really ownership and control. So there are standards set forth in the Small Business Act and the regulations of the Small Business Administration defining what exactly that means. Generally it means majority ownership, 51% or more, and effective control of the operation. These are actually very important standards because the SBA administers something called the affiliation rules, and there are also court decisions in this area that are very important that define when it is that an individual may actually not have effective control of their business, even if they think they do. And so you don't want to get to a point where you've gotten everything together, you've put all this information, time and energy into applying, and then an SBA officer says, well, I'm sorry, I think under the circumstances you're actually not eligible for the program. Even worse is if you got into a situation later on where someone protested the award of a contract to your business because of ineligibility, and you wouldn't want to be in a situation where you had to actually litigate whether you were eligible in the first place to get the set-aside contract. So just focus on the socially and economically disadvantaged part of the standard, but the other standard of ownership and control by an individual qualifies is equally important.
Great. Thank you. And the next question is, can 2 8As form a joint venture, or can one 8A acquire another 8A, and what are the limitations?
Yeah, they can form joint ventures. They can also engage in acquisitions, but at the end of the day, they have to maintain the surviving entity, or the entity used, still must qualify as a small business under the small business standards set forth in the SBA regulations, and the result cannot be ownership or an affiliation leading to control by a large company, a large joint venture partner. So within those boundaries, yes, you can joint venture, yeah, there can be acquisitions, but you have to continue to maintain your eligibility under the program.
Great. What happens to my ongoing 8A contracts once I graduate from the program?
You are contractually, well, you're required under the program to contractually complete the contracts under the in accordance with the terms of the agreements themselves. So if SBA graduates you, if you voluntarily graduate, you still must complete all previously awarded 8A contracts.
Great. How long does it generally take to become 8A certified?
I think, in my experience, Jennifer, that processing period can vary. Do you have any specifics on that?
I think that they were trying to actually shorten the period, and I think in the past maybe it was around, we'll say, 6 months, give or take a few. But I think they were promising a response maybe within 30 to 60 days. I'm not sure if that's been implemented yet or not, but I'm sure there's some information on the SBA website about that.
Yeah, I think so.
Great. And I think that wraps it up for questions. So Patrick, thank you again for your great insight here. It was very valuable and great presentation. Any last thoughts that you have for the audience?
Well, thanks, Jennifer. I just want to thank you for all of your time and initiative in putting these webinars together. I'm sure they're extremely valuable for folks out in the government contracting community. And I'm just harking back to something that you said that I think is very important. I've never been in a successful meeting where a contractor, prospective contractor, goes in to, let's say, a potential prime contractor and says, "Hi, I'm an 8A, let's do business." The prime contractor or the government official, whoever it is, the government official, needs to be convinced that your product or your service is something that they really want to buy, that it's got a leading technology or something that's valuable to them. And then when you can tell them, and we're an 8A, that just makes it easier. So again, 8A is a valuable additional tool that small business can use in their growth strategy.
Great. Actually, we did have one more question come in, and that was a great point. The question is, I run a professional services 8A firm. Once I graduate, can I start another business selling products completely different from what I do now and apply for the 8A certification?
My understanding is that you can, as long as it's a completely different small business entity.
Okay, great, thanks. And actually, well, I'm going to say that I think that I'm going to disagree with you there, respectfully. I'm not 100% positive, but the way I understood it was kind of once and done. But we can get back to the person on that question. So again, thanks, Patrick. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We do have a list here of the upcoming and the previous webinars that we were hosting, and I'll look back real quick to Patrick's information should you want to reach out to him for further details about the 8A program. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Patrick, for joining us.
Thanks, Jennifer.